Hello and welcome to another DevFest collaboration 2023. So excited to have you here and to be sharing these amazing DevFest speakers and hosts. These events are produced through Google developer groups, and they're all over the nation, all over North America, all over the world. Here we are with one of the GDUG founders for Burnaby, and they've got their upcoming DevFest on November 25th in downtown Vancouver. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. I'm so excited about this presentation today. We'll be talking about neurodiversity and inclusion in product design, and I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you so much, Philippa, for the introduction. Like you mentioned, I'm Vaishnavi. I'm based out of Vancouver, BC. I'm a software engineer, speaker, community builder, and also an organizer this time. So, uh, this was one of the presentations I did last year in one of the DevFest. So, I thought, why not share this with the community? And this is such a passionate topic because I'm always a champion for neurodiversity, accessibility in tech, the hidden disabilities, so to speak, and how things and products can be made better for the neurodiverse community. So, can I just take it over?
Yep, you take it from here.
Thank you. So, like the title said, it's about neurodiversity inclusion. I'll briefly go about inclusion 101 in product design and technology, and how neurodiverse users, or in general, some people are always put as edge cases in any software. It's just mentioned as, oh, this is a boundary condition, it's just 1 out of 100, and then how we need to evolve and think beyond average users and also have inclusion where we cater to all these users. That's going to be the whole slide, right? I'm sure many of you know what claustrophobia is, and I just want to say that it's the fear of public speaking. We all have that. I would have that. I have that. I just want to set the ball rolling that there's you could encounter claustrophobia, but still go for it. Yeah, fear of public speaking, right? A quick agenda of what the whole title topic would be. It's about just a brief description of what neurodiversity is, accessibility and neurodiversity. How do you have a thin line between them? And what are the things that we can have from the physical disability side into the hidden disability side? Some guidelines and some concluding remarks. I'm sure many of you know this concept called curb cut effect. It was actually designed in 1960s, but the rule wasn't legally implemented till 1990s, which says that people with disabilities under the American Disability Act have to have accessibility everywhere on the road so that they can actually go and use the wheelchair. Now, you could say that the design in mind was for actual accessible users, but you see how it actually benefited everyone. The curb cut here, the red shade here is actually the curb, and you see it eventually even benefited people lugging the trolleys, the cyclists, the skating people, people with prams and strollers and luggages. So this is the whole concept of curb cut effect, where you actually design for one person, but then it benefits so many more users. So the bottom line, you solve for one, you extend to many. So everyone has some abilities, some limitations in their life, right? So when you think of product, always think of this curb cut effect. You think you're solving for one user, which is the edge case user, but see how it can extend to many people. Another great saying in the whole championing of the diversity and inclusion and disability space is called "Nothing about us without us." This is a general saying. So whenever you're designing your product to include accessibility, include, let's say, DEI, include neurodiversity, please include them. If you don't include them, you're just getting a third eye view of that, and the product will turn out great. So always think nothing about us without us. If you want something to be done, you have to have a representation of them into the product. Yeah. So when I talk about neurodiversity, people just have like small updates, small information that's passed. Oh, it's OCD. Oh, it's ADHD. But if you see the slide, which I got it from Airslate, talks about so many things here. You could just think it's a whole gamut. It's a whole umbrella where we are even talking about people with trauma to ADD to OCD to sensory issues. I experience two or more of these issues myself. That's why this topic is so relatable to me. You could say people are gifted, but there is so much more happening that when you think of neurodiverse users, think of all the people that encompasses this. So it's always invisible. It's not like a physical injury that shows up and it stays invisible. So just a quick overview of what this is. I'm going to everybody knows this. It's just about the way your brain is wired, be it your social interaction, intellectual conversations, understanding your emotions, behavior. So you would call this as a social model of disability, and they're wired a little different. It's not like certain medication can calm them, can work them in different ways, but you can't be trained out of a neurodiverse brain into becoming a neurotypical brain. Yeah, so we were talking about the agenda. One of the first points I was talking about is abundance and not redundance. Whenever you think of product and when you think of design, think of abundance. How much more can you give to the user? Think of the curb cut effect. Think about nothing about us without us. You're just saying, I'm not just solving for one, I'm solving to a whole lot of users. But don't think of redundance. When I say redundance, it's repetitive. You're just repeating, overwhelming the user. So always keep abundance in your mind. Always have kinder products, empathetic products, forgiving products, and always think about how can you bring the gamification aspect in neurodiversity and actually enhance people's attention span and make products better, and some of the guidelines, of course. So this a quick example of abundance and not redundance. You would see some of the products, some of my favorites, Asana here, and you see the way things have been evolved. It's the Asana multiple view here. You see that it's catering to somebody who likes a calendar view, perhaps somebody who likes a pictorial view, visual view, somebody who needs more like a spreadsheet kind of a view. Another example of abundance and not redundance. Click up another great example. You see how they have encompassed so many things, kept it simple. You just click home, you would be taken to a certain view. You click project, you get a project view. Click list, similar to the way Asana was, right? Click list, you get the list view. Then you have a board view. So different people think in different ways. Some people like to think visually, some people like checklists, some people like content, some people like words, some people like a timeline view, right? So another great example of ClickUp doing this. And the second thing I talked about, be forgiving, be kind. You know, things can happen, be it neurotypical or neurodiverse users. We all have things. Sometimes we just goof up, right? Having a product that tells you, hey, you said you attach your file, but then you didn't attach it, right? So this is such a subtle way of telling you that you forgot. One of the best features, whoever came up with this, kudos to them. So, this is what being kind is. Another example, I love Grammarly. I'm an ambassador for them as well. I would call it the Disneyland of spell check. Right? Imagine so many miscommunications and misunderstandings happen because we tend to think a certain way, we deliver a certain way. We think a different way, we write a different way, and when it goes to the end user, it again gets translated in a different way. Imagine if a product can nudge you and guide you. It does not have to replace what you think or write, but just gives that suggestion and gives that clarity, right? Another example of forgiving product. Since I'm from electronic arts, I wouldn't skip Sims, right? It's a great game for neurotypical users. It kind of gives you a land where you can imagine, you can play around, you can have your own comfort zone, you can level up the certain way. It's very inclusive and people feel very well connected and represented in this game. You know, so today you feel a certain way, tomorrow you feel a certain way, the game can take it. You know, it also creates like a safe situation. It explores dynamics. It also explores, oh, now I feel like I'm in overdrive. I can deliver a lot of things. And then a certain time when you're getting too bored and too restless, you just go into the mode. So this game caters, and then it's a great representation of how neurodiverse people are, right? Some of the examples here. When you say look at this website, right? When you say wrong password and okay, versus giving a guidelines saying that you need to have had certain characters, you not have to be repeating. It's much more easier, and in fact, it would reduce frustration for everybody. Yeah, very relatable to me, this personal slide. Whenever you interpret messages, right, there are like text to audio recorders, there are automatic converters built in nowadays. Ensure that when you're using certain fonts, certain types, find a way to test if it differentiates between 0 and O, I and L, 1 I L and L, sometimes Q O 0. They all can look similar when it's all spaced out. I often have this challenge because I have certain issues, and then also think how your readers can pick this up. So choose a font which is very friendly to all these. Always also stick to active voice. Imagine saying something like "I like you" versus "You are liked by me," right? It doesn't sound typical, and then some people can literally take your word for it, so that's how neurodiverse brain is wired sometimes. And like I said, when you talk about things being taken literally, metaphor, we all, like, I'm guilty as charged of using metaphors, idioms, and figures of speech. But especially when you're creating content, be very specific instead of, let's say, calling it a day. Like, what is a day to you, right? What is a day to them? Be very specific and say we are going to end it, right? It's as simple as that. Keep it simple, because it's again, it reduces the misunderstanding. So we were talking about the guidelines in our agenda. One of the guidelines is just break down chunk. Larger chunk means it can really overwhelm the users. It can be challenging for people with limited attention span. Studies say that attention span from hours has gone to 30 minutes. From 30 minutes now, with the TikTok generation, has gone to a couple of minutes or less sometimes. So with so much of attention span reducing because of the evolution of social media, keep things very simple. And also uh, keep your buttons, your actions very descriptive, right? When you talk about microcopy, you don't say click here. Instead of that, have a verb. Say, okay, what does it happen? Maybe if you click, it uploads image, it registers, it downloads the book. So just being very specific, so that, let's say, someone who's visually blind cannot see, but the translator can read that and say, oh, this button is to upload image, so that means I have to click here. And third point, super relatable to me, be very careful. Gone are the days where you had these annoying pop-ups would come and just distract you and just hang your screen or do like crazy things. Same thing with animation. Just don't go overboard. For me, one of the pet peeves is if I open a website and then there's a video playing, and by default the video player in the inbuilt video is not the sound is not off, or it's not muted. It would startle me so much. Sometimes it just triggers some anxiety. Some sounds can trigger some things in people. So always be very careful with sound animation. Think, why is there a need for it? Think 100 times. If you don't find a need for it, please don't do it. Do not do it. Don't startle. Keep the user informed. So avoid autoplay. Another example where I mentioned that suddenly do not startle the user with sounds. Even subtitles. This is a different topic where you have to be more inclusive with the subtitles, and also always start testing, keeping the neurodiverse users in mind. Bring a focus group, run a user testing. Some of the guidelines that are actually designed. This is from the guidelines. These are universal guidelines, and some of these do's and don'ts. Simple colors. Keep it simple. Don't have contrasting colors. Write in plain English, like we said. Don't use figures of speech. Use simple sentences. Use descriptive buttons, and use consistently. You don't have one website and one page looking a certain layout versus another. Some of the things which are more like guidelines for dyslexia, right? And they read things certain ways, certain letters can get jumbled up. These are some of the guidelines. In the interest of time, I can share this slide with the audience, and we can go ahead from here. Again, quick summary call to ensure you are not using bright colors. It's just different guidelines from different companies, different organizations. So Imagine when you're projecting, when you're writing, how is the projector going to pick up? What kind of a lighting are you going to use? Have they got a dark theme going on, which will actually overwrite your content? So just think of all these scenarios. And another way to include, we talked about gamification, right? So another way to include neurodiverse users is kind of do a journey mapping so that we all feel belong there. You could actually have a journey map the experience of the users. Oh, Duolingo is one such great company which uses gamification in a great way. Have those characters so that we all feel belonged and represented. Yeah, we talked about sensory issues. So some of the pointers in from my experiences, lighting is it not just in the website, right? The surroundings, is it too contrasting? It's too light, too bright. Acoustics, the sound, the color, how the sequencing happens, how the compartmentalization happens. How do you transition from one layout to another, one stage to another? Sensory. It's all about trying to build that zen in your mind because we are wired differently. So, in some of the concluding slides, I would like to iterate is, there's a famous saying, "Great minds think like alike." I would like to say, "Great minds think alike," and we also learn differently. That's how the neurodiverse people are, and we need more representation in this community, right? And a design with inclusion and neurodiversity is not just nice to have feature. You see, most of them are an afterthought. They design everything and say, "Oh, let's work on the corner case, let's work on the edge case." No, it's not just a nice to have feature, it's very imperative, it's basic, it's a must have feature, right? Always remember, just because you have so much content you're constantly talking doesn't mean you're communicating. Sometimes you can be minimalistic in your design, be very simple in your design, and you can actually say so much more than just overwhelming the user. Yeah, that brings us to the end of the slide. Just like this umbrella with so many colors, there's so many kinds of neurodiverse people, so much of representation that we needed. And I hope this slide kind of brought a small voice to the representation of the community. And hopefully, the next time you build products with accessibility and other guidelines, you also think about neurodiverse users and not just neurotypical users. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Philippa. Thank you.
Absolutely, that was wonderful, and I think that yeah, I love that you bring to attention that neurodiversity is different and experienced differently. I think I'm on the. Actually, I saw something recently. Actually, because I was going to say a lot of people will put me in the ADHD camp, and I saw one recently that was looking at the Venn diagram of autism, ADHD, and talent and gifted. And I was really reading it, and I was like, I think I'm actually kind of in the gifted category in certain ways that I'm very independent thinking, very creative thinking, but not, but my inability to sit still isn't in a moment. It's over the course of a year. I live between 3 cities, and that's normal for me. So I have this energy that I need to kind of keep moving, but it's not so much in a moment. It's different. But I definitely am in that ADHD world where I have ways where I can hyper focus, and then I just need to sort of step away, and I can't get back that focus until I've aired out my brain.
So,
And
right.
and I think that, but what I love about what you talk about is the ability to be aware of sounds and light and things that startle people and things that just actually there. I mean, even just I just read a story that there was an event where the way that they were using the lights ended up causing eye injuries for people.
I'm interested in that study. Talk about the literal sense of being overloaded and then having those sensory issues physically. Like for me, I got a nicer camera than my inbuilt camera because it just is so much better in terms of quality. But then imagine looking at it almost kind of blinds me sometimes, because of the way it's pushed. I don't use it all the time, but I can get triggered with just lights and the way it flickers sometimes, the way it drips sometimes, yeah. Oh, so relatable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to create spaces for this because it gives people more comfort in speaking up and asking for what we need.
That's right. That's I
And I
completely
and
agree.
so I think that that awareness is so important, and I'm just so pleased that you're sharing with us this here today. And I think it speaks to how interesting dev fests are. I mean, they're from the highly technical to the themes of inclusivity and representation, and a sense of creating a sense of we belong, and we're here, and we're here to support each other and learn together. I've been going through this balance lately between my love for content creation, and I love being part of these stages, and at the same time wanting to be competent and successful in my academic career, and falling down deep tech holes as I've been learning new levels of coding and integration and map making. And so I have both sides of me, where I have this part of me that loves the social interaction, but I have this part of me that really has so much joy in the quiet of editing and the quiet of coding and the quiet of map making, and sort of quietly figuring things out that just take a lot of time, and I don't want to be bothered. So it's so I think that DevFests are a great way to bring together that socialization, that community, and also these really deep and interesting conversations about coding and about tech and about where do we start, where do we grow, and what are we building and creating together, and what kind of community do we want to have. So let's transition the conversation a little bit to DevFest.
Yay!
And you've got an upcoming DevFest, and I've been seeing your posts on LinkedIn, and I'm reposting a lot of them, and sharing my enthusiasm for what's coming. You got some amazing speakers lined up. I mean, really, really impressive, not only in the weight and sort of visibility and experience of those speakers, but also in the topics that they're going to be talking about. So, do we want to sort of take a closer look at that briefly, and just kind of give a rundown of what's going on there? Because I think it's very exciting, and I'm really quite impressed with that lineup that you've been able to pull together.
Yeah, I think the talk from here can get a bit biased and personal because it feels like I've had another baby, right? It's my chapter got incorporated end of August, so that's just kind of recent and nascent, and so that's from September to now, and the timing of it was coincided with the timing of DevFest, and which is the biggest of the year, right? So when you say about biggest of the season, it's like day one I had to start from even like creating a page to reserving the channels. I didn't even get the email because apparently there was this community uh, pre 2019. I think with COVID the chapter got dissolved. That's the nature of the GDG groups, right? You have to keep the community alive. If it's not active it just moves away. And then I'm like, okay, now what do I do? Like, where do I start? I just like day one, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, okay, one of the things I need to highlight is a call for proposal. And I catered it to so much more than just the tech community because there are people who are also transitioning to tech from non-tech. Talk about nursing, not talk about chefs, people in the kitchen, homemakers, they're all transitioning. So my the CFP is closed. Maybe I can give you a sneak peek sometime of my call for proposal. It included even like debates from, you want to talk about Oppenheimer or Barbie or Barbieheimer, right? It's just about uh, it's so much more beyond tech because sometimes you can have these great tech skills, but if you don't know how to articulate, it's so much more difficult in this world to kind of even give demo pitch to investors, pitch in your organization, give demo to customers. So I was like, okay, we need people who talk about personal branding. We need people who talk about how do you give memorable presentations. And these are people who are also high tech people, some people who are in the cybersecurity space, some people who are in the actual tech space, but then their insight of these non-tech topics is so good because in the last year there's so much of chatter about AI. Sometimes it just gets overwhelming to be in terms of the jobs, the layoffs, the trends. So I decided that I want my fest to cater to immigrants, my fest to cater to graduates, students in school, so that everyone has something to take away. They could all I don't want everyone to just come talk about AI, LLM, and data science and go because we need so much more beyond it. when you talk about a fest, it should be holistic. It should be well rounded. So different people come for different reasons. Some people are just coming for networking too, right? And at the end of the day, on a Saturday, when people come buy the ticket and be in my fest, I want them to have that laugh, that giggle, and say, going back. When they go home, they say, "Oh, these are my key takeaways." So that's been my goal. And some of the students, and not students, sorry, some of the people I actually mentored are also doing first time speaking opportunities here, because I said, "Don't be a volunteer. You could come speak, and let's see what we can do." So it's so much more that they get some spotlight, perhaps turning into better job opportunities, or someone could get noticed too, right?
Hmm.
So it's such a great community building where uh, I decided not to be a speaker and be more in the background, and then give room to people. And day one, I was very anxious, wondering if people will even submit a session, because maybe they don't know me. And to a point where it came, I got 55 plus submissions, and I had to close my CFP 2 weeks early, because my heart used to break trying to reject people. It is not me. I'm not a confrontational person. From day zero, where I thought, will people even come to my fest, to let's say day 30, when I had so much, I think somewhere I was afraid of rejecting more. Of course, I could have always chosen all the sessions, like hypothetically 60 or 70, and then pick and choose. But sometimes you do what you do. You can't take the bets all the time and just go with your gut. So I'm like, okay, there's always a next time for everybody, but that's how the journey started.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I, like I said, I've seen some of the sessions that you've picked, and they are definitely uh, meet that audience that you want to cater to, and its diversity and its and sense of inclusion. So when people show up, they have this sense of I belong here, even if I, by other standards, maybe I'm not sure if I do.
100%, 100. It's the market. There was a famous YouTuber in the computer science realm who was taking parallels between uh, Vancouver and Silicon Valley, and he said, when there's a meetup in Silicon Valley, people come, share their ideas. Next day, they would ideate and then perhaps build a new product or a new company. But in Vancouver, people come to meetups just for job opportunities, just to kind of show their face and say, "I'm available in the market." You see the contrast. We're all just in the West Coast, just perhaps a flight away, a few hours away. But the tech scene in Vancouver is also about the market, the current conditions that we are in, the number of people who have been laid off, or people who are graduating and looking for jobs. I think networking has been a big key. And though I took the post in a pinch of salt, it was so true that here, when we run into people during meetups, DevFest, and any other tech activities, we are all about, okay, where's the job, where's the opportunity, right? It's a sad state. However, my goal with DevFest is also to ensure that we build more awareness for speakers, so that they kind of do their personal branding through my DevFest.
Which is wonderful. It's just a great place to do it, and I'm so excited to hear more. I just and I encourage people, if you're in Vancouver, November 25th, definitely uh, attend. It sounds. I mean, I'm sure you guys are going to have a full house as it is. I'm very excited, and of course, there's a Los Angeles one coming up. There's I've got Central Valley, or Silicon Valley's actually got it's coming up this week. So they're all over. Just definitely check out. It'll be in the link below, all of the DevFest schedule, and look up the videos that we've done here and other places. So many of the DevFest also sort of have a hybrid component to them, and that's what DevFest collaboration is about. Is to just kind of bring a community together to just sort of share these different voices and these different events that are happening. So I'm super excited about what you're up to. So I just want to see if I can scroll down this page just a little bit and run through this. So about the event, and again, it's hosted by Google Developer Groups Burnaby, and you can join the network and become a member of the GDG, and then talk about the venue at Northeast University.
We have two venues actually.
Yeah, I'm seeing that, and Simon Fraser University.
SFU downtown. So SFU is a big campus in Burnaby, but the one is, and one of the reasons for that is uh, the Northeastern University, who's our primary sponsor, they have certain classes going on. So the the keynote, the kind of the big room where we wanted to do the keynote, had a cap of 80 people. So when we were doing ticket sales of, let's say, 150 to 200 people, we didn't want to break the security. So we hired another, we are paying for another venue so that we do the opening, closing keynote there, and the remaining sessions back in Northeast.
Excellent. And then for people who are part of companies that want to support and get in front of people, these are always great sponsorship opportunities at all of these DevFests. Partner with sponsors and do a lot to make them visible and known to the participants. You guys are also doing scholarships. That's awesome.
Yes, yes.
And connect and communicate. I love this. Okay, so and then here you've got your agenda starting at 9 a.m., moving to the keynotes, and then you've got your sessions, lunch with leadership, more sessions and workshops.
I want to briefly explain the lunch with leadership concept here.
Yeah.
Instead of everyone just spreading over during the lunchtime where we offer lunch, we decided that we kind of made a leadership group, people in the mid to senior leadership in their career who were all in different expertise. One is in cybersecurity, one is in engineering management, one each one has their own expertise, right? One is in the startup space, and then they could all lead a cohort, and the same cohort in the morning when they're moving back and forth between two venues, so that people just feel more engaged, and also in the afternoon. So they would take a small batch where they pay for themselves, but then you get to talk to leaders about things that you generally don't ask in a very conventional environment. When you go to restaurants, go to places outside, it feels less formal, and perhaps let everyone open up and then ask those conversations.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's almost like a mentor lunch, and you can have and you have someone sort of facilitating the conversation, because I think that is so important. I've been to a few tech events where I will see people sort of standing. I remember one, I was at the GDG International Women's Day in New York City, and there was these two sweet ladies that were just doe-eyed in the corner, and you could just against a column. It wasn't quite at the end of the corner, but and they weren't even talking to each other. They just didn't know where to start, and that's immediately where I go to first. I immediately want to introduce myself to them, got them to introduce to each other, and immediately, like, we became this hub where all these other people started to come into the conversation, to the point that they were so engaged that I just kind of left and went on to sort of see where else I could be of service to help conversations get started. And I'm very comfortable with that, because I have a background in entertainment and media, but I totally understand that those are not sort of core skills that come with a tech education sometimes. It's just how to work a room. And so I think,
Yeah, networking is such a big thing. It's also because if you can't voice your, if you cannot be your own advocate, nobody can, right? And not everyone is a social butterfly. I used to be an introvert too. I would always think work would do my talking, until I moved to North America, and where things have been so culturally different. Here, you need to voice, you need to show up at events. People also look at your interpersonal skills, and how do you articulate, how do you present ideas. You can be the genius, you could just be that geek who just churn out code and just build things in a day. But then if people have to know you, you kind of have to market yourself. And I always feel for introverts, because I'm from that space. My default, if I am mindful, uh, I can do certain things, I can mask certain things with my neurodiversity and other things, but my default mode is I would just be quiet, like speak only if spoken to, right? So I just uh, personally could relate to the anecdote of you. So you are a relationship builder then.
well, I've actually taken a month off. I wanted to do even more with this, but I consciously was like, okay, don't do, even though this comes so naturally to me, I was like, I have to build, I have to get through these tech holes. I fell down a couple where my computer was just like, no, we're not doing that. And I had to kind of get to the other side of it. And it took days. And I was like, I have to figure this out. And so it actually takes effort for me to shut off the phone, shut off the email. I was responding on, it took me a whole day Friday to just catch up with communications. You got an email from me, other people that I just, and I was like, hey, I fell down a tech hole. I'm back now. But I had to consciously not go on Slack, consciously not follow up with things that normally would just come so naturally for me to follow up on, because I want to be proficient in the tech. I realize that it would be easy for me to just talk all day, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I actually want to build things and I want to know how to build things. And I want to help to lead teams that can build things, but kind of really be able to get into the weeds to understand what's happening and how all these things fit together and integrate. And so, yeah, I think there, I always used to, when I worked with writers, I always felt that, and if this kind of can translate, that the amateur writer was either really, really good at the idea of the concept. I've got a big idea. They couldn't execute it. Or they were really good at the execution, but couldn't wrap it around a big idea. And that the ultimately, like the success in the professional writer was able to integrate the great idea and the solid execution. But that's where we together have to learn. And so for me, I mean, there's always more to learn for me on the public speaking side and the presentation side and now making video side. And I think as a technologist, in technology, there's always more to learn as well. But I think we also have to sort of grow ourselves and stretch ourselves a bit so that we're equally as comfortable, in front of the code as we are in front of other people.
So much true. I think there's such a tectonic shift in mindsets since COVID. If there's anything, it taught us the lessons about how to cherish loved ones, how do you value time. Nothing else matters. It's your family, it's your mental health, it's your sanity. It's about keeping yourself clean and keeping yourself safe. Stay home when not well. Small things. That's all, and that's exactly what I personally felt, and then many people even asked me, "Hey, can you do it online? We could join from any part of the world." I'm like, "Sure," but this suddenly I feel so siloed. Sometimes it's just between me and my computer for 8 hours a day, multiplied by five. Sometimes much more than that. You're outside of your computer, then you're hopping onto your phone or your tablet and other things. So there's always that sensory issues. Sometimes you just go meet in person because at an online networking event, you click that button to end the call, and the call ends. All people drop off. There's no medium which can just have that bonding moments. But in person, you could just leave the, and then maybe you and I like a certain drink would hit a certain bar or certain kind of food, and say, oh, let me show you around. You're a visitor here. You come from, let's say, Toronto, and there's so much more that can happen. The osmosis is so real, and then you that's one of the reasons why in our DevFest I wanted to know the fun facts of the speakers. We shared it for people who were able to share with us, right? I mean, because people are all busy, people who gave them. I just wanted to add that human element, and like one of them said, he loves Bollywood. He's also the GDT lead and the mentor, the North America GDT mentor. He said he likes Bollywood. I'm like, that's an instant connection. I'm Indian, and I love Bollywood. You love Bollywood. I wouldn't have known in any other world because it's a tech conference. You're supposed to speak tech, right? But let's say there's a graduate or a student who's in first year of college who still has a long way to figure out what he wants in life, but they have, like, you like a board game, I like a certain board game. That's such an icebreaker, right? We thoroughly enjoyed the fun facts aspect, and that's where we kind of added that small spice and that pinch to elevate the experience of the conference.
I love that. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
That is great. Well, I'm going to wrap up to this. This is great. Thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody, if you have questions for us, drop them below. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. And just, again, check out those DevFests and let us know how they go. And they're just great for inspiration, motivation, networking, finding that next opportunity and that next job, seeing where that next tech thing is, or that just next personal goal. I find whenever I go to events, they're almost like a mirror. They show me where I'm at relative to just the conversation. They give me inspiration for, oh, that's where I need to go next, or oh, hey, these are actually skills that I have that people want, and so I just find them so valuable to get those sort of check-in points. So I will leave you with some last words.
My last words is be kind to each other. I think, like an Ellen DeGeneres always says says in her show, I think forget, sometimes you talk to someone because they are in Netflix or Amazon or Microsoft. It's okay, but ultimately, fundamentally, let's all be kind to each other. The world, with wars going on constantly, with the news, there's so much of gloominess and sadness going around. I think the best we can do is help each other out and be kind to each other. Yeah, that would be my passing thoughts.
Excellent. All right, everybody, see you next time.
Bye. Thank you so